Hi, this is Rick Harsh, Chief Editor of Corona Samstadt. This is my booktube, and today I've already done a review and an ad, but I'm going to do another review because I read a book today called Dalkey Days, a memoir by Stephen Moore. Now, the weird thing is this book is not coming out until April, and it arrived in my mailbox today. Somebody, now this is Jim Gower's Zero Gram Press. I think you can call it Jim Gower's Zero Gram Press. They published this book of mine, The Manifold Destiny of Eddie Vegas. And they also have published Stephen Moore before, My Back Pages, and his book on Thoreau, Alexander Thoreau, A Fan's Notes. So somewhere in the bookosphere, there was a major mix-up because I am not a book reviewer. I'm a lousy book reviewer, and there's no other reason for me to get a book months ahead of time than to do a review. So what I need to do, it's incumbent upon me to do a review, to do it rapidly, and to do it in my way, which is badly, so that they don't make this mistake again. Doing it badly does not mean panning the book or lying about the book or whatever. What it means is being disorganized and overlooking important things. And I don't know. I'm just a lousy reviewer. But naturally I was thrilled to see it. I'd heard word that the book was coming out, and I couldn't wait to read it. And that leads immediately to one of my favorite points, and that's the kindness of Stephen Moore, which the more you know about him, the more you know about how his kindness is evident on virtually every page of a book that's largely dedicated to taking down his ex-boss, the founder of Dalkey Archive, a guy named John O'Brien. Because in this book world, it's really a strange place. It's a very strange place. And we don't really get to know a lot about the inner workings of the book world, the good gossip and so on. And for instance, does anybody know who started the Fiction Collective? I mean, I just know that they published Curtis White. I might remember a couple other names if given time. I love Curtis White. He appears in this book, as a matter of fact. Not alive. I mean, he's just mentioned. But I saw him read once. I think it was something about memories of my father watching television. It's fantastic. I hate readings. I fucking hate readings. This is at Iowa, and Curtis White came. I didn't know anything about him, and I was just mesmerized. It was just hilarious and extraordinary. And I later got the book and read it, and one or two other things by him. And he's one of those authors I got to get around to. Just collect them all and read them all at once. Very fascinating and funny human being. So he's mentioned in this book. But you get, this is a book of literary gossip. And what is Dalkey Archive. It's in this book, if you know anything about the world, you know that fiction is a horrible place for a person to be a writer. It's if you're a writer, it's best to just, I don't know, go away or work at a newspaper or something like that. The New York literary scene has long been a nightmare. It was at its best probably, I don't know, when Melville was selling. But what we know is that for the majority of its existence as a center, world's literary center, that the best they could do was as a publishing cultural thing, entity, or cultural environment, was to sell a lot of shit and once in a while use some of the money from the shit to pay for something great. I remember in 1921, well, or probably late 1920, when the Clintons were getting their asses tossed out of Washington, Hillary was offered, well, she put her memoirs up for sale. They hadn't been written yet. And she got $7 million for an advance. Now, this is not sour grapes. These are desiccated grapes that have been stomped on anyway and made into a dry, scabby wine. That when you don't drink it, you what is the word when something just flakes off your, anyway, scabrous is one, but there's another word. Hold on, let me think. Be patient with me here, because this is about Stephen Moore's book. Desquamate. You desquamate this wine. It's a horror. It's an absolute horror. But what I want to say, without using any more metaphor, is that by then, when Hillary took $7 million, what I was thinking, because I've always been a utopian, I can't get it out of my system. What I was thinking is, tell Hillary, look, you're going to sell, so we're not going to give you an advance. What we're going to do is we're going to take $7 million. Or no. I know, Hillary, you like money, we'll give you $1 million. And then it takes $6 million, and you give $20,000 to promising literary figures. Young people nobody knows, old people nobody knows, whatever. $20,000 a piece. For how many writers would that be? That would be for a lot, okay? 20 times 60, I think. 12,000? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But a lot of human beings who do great things with words could be supported. And, but no, so this is the way I was thinking back then. And it's the degeneration that capitalism requires of the arts, and so this creates a situation where you have a lot of great writing and very few places for it to go, very few places that recognize it, and so there's always going to be in the United States. Let me just speak for the United States, because then I can't speak about my own press, Corona Samizdat, which is in Slovenia, but sells mostly in the United States, and its most popular books are by writers in the United States so far, but that's because this guy, Joao Reis, has not yet receive the attention he will receive. He will receive attention. And this book will be known for the masterpiece that it is. Bedraggled Grandma with Russian Snow. Mark my words. But that's all beside the point. And I hate straying from the point. No good writer should ever stray from a point. Unless he's Rabelais or likes Rabelais. I like Rabelais, so I can do it. But not here, because I'm going to lose your interest. But the book is still in my hand. So remember, Dalkey Archive is legendary. A small press became legendary. It's probably not the best small press there ever was. Although, when you read a memoir like this, which takes a little over the first third to tear apart John O'Brien, and then another third or so to talk about the books that he delivered, and then another, not quite third, to talk about 5 particular authors. It's an important one, but is it the best ever? I mean, there's Sun and Moon. Right now, there's Zero Gram. Green Integer might have been a great one at one point. Fiction Collective 1 and 2. Lots of great university presses. Texas was one. And there probably are a lot of great ones now. Lots of presses devoted to a category of writers, the Asian diaspora. What is the name of the press? Damn it. I know it because Seshu Foster, a great writer, has been published by them. Forgive my brain. I've been reading all day, and I'm tired. But the funny thing about this book, the really funny thing about this book, is somehow I have come to know more than my share about John O'Brien. And Stephen Moore is such a nice guy. My own introduction to Stephen Moore was a kind of a long shot. I read My Back Pages, and his chapter on Brossard excited the hell out of me. I thought, this is a guy I've got to read. 3 books for sure: Raging Joy, Sublime Violations, his short Vietnam novel that's the best Vietnam fiction ever written, and Wake Up, We're Almost There, the book of the 60s, and As the Wolf Howls at My Door. We've also published The Double Dealers and As the Wolf Leaps, and we may have another one or two coming up. We'll see. But I read that chapter, and it did what it was supposed to do. It excited an enthusiastic reader into finding Chandler Brossard and reading him. But I could only find one Chandler Brossard book. I don't remember which one it was, but it was on sale for over £2,000. Given the excitement that Brossard created with those books, I'm surprised it was more than 5. Or maybe it was one of his early ones, like Bold Saboteur. I don't know. But anyway, so I contacted Stephen Moore, and, he's a big shot. He can't help it. He gained quite a reputation because he did amazing work bringing into print lost, so to speak, writers and young writers who didn't get the attention they deserved, and so on. And he talks a lot about that in here, but not in a look what I've done sort of way. He's just talking about, he knows there's interest in his Dalkey career. But, he could hardly write it honestly without nailing John O'Brien. But, if anybody's going to nail me for being a prick, I don't know why they would do it, but if they were going to do it, I hope it's Stephen Moore, because he has a really hard time being mean. I know that John O'Brien is much worse, or was much worse than what Stephen Moore makes him out to be. Maybe there were some things Stephen Moore couldn't say because of possible lawsuits by family members of left behind by O'Brien. I do have good reason to believe that O'Brien scammed a lot of money. I mean, that's implied here is some scammery and money grubbing, But on only one occasion does Stephen Moore actually say that he used money that he got from a foundation to buy something that he shouldn't have. No, he didn't. Actually, he didn't. He used it to give a raise to his girlfriend, I think is what it was. I think that was the only thing malfeasance that was hinted at. But I know there was a lot more malfeasance, taking advantage of foundations, using the money for various things such as purchases, trips. Trips are purchases, but I mean, like, I can't imagine the guy didn't have a yacht. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't care about yachts. One vacation in here is mentioned, and he went to northern Wisconsin, which only implies, that doesn't imply that he's a simple man, O'Brien and his co-conspirator, girlfriend or lady friend or whatever. They went on a vacation to northern Wisconsin. I went to northern Wisconsin, my last sort of vacation. It was a nightmare. And I'm not saying it's always a nightmare, or it has to be a nightmare, or that you can't spend money up there, but surely O'Brien went other places. But I think that probably also just not only a fear of lawsuit. I'm positing this. I posit fear of lawsuit, but I also think that Moore is the kind of guy who is as much appalled by just bad daily behavior as he would be by the kind of grandiose scamming that some people do. His concern with literature, O'Brien, well, quite often in here, Moore will say, probably he never even read it, or he didn't even read this, or, whatever. But that was always or usually to Stephen Moore's benefit, because then he could do whatever he wanted with a book. And for much of his time at Dalkey, that was one of the things that was great about being there. Doesn't seem like much of the time it was great being there because of O'Brien. Only because of O'Brien's interests. O'Brien was interested in Gilbert Sorrentino, so he wasn't a complete literary dolt. But I think there's one picture in here, and I don't know if I can find it quickly, but there's a picture in here of Moore and I think Carol Mazo, and yeah, there they are. Okay, there's Stephen Moore, there's Carol Mazo, and there's O'Brien. And you can, when you know about O'Brien and Moore, I'm a little surprised at the height of Stephen Moore. But this guy, you can see the Napoleonic complex bursting out, right there. I had no idea what the guy looked like till I saw this photo, and I already know, that he's got a Napoleon complex, but he might have got it from something besides his height until I saw this photo. It's also a goofy-looking bastard, but, photographs, what do they tell you? So I know that this could have been a slaughter. This is a thin book, and it's a book you'll read in a day, and I'll read it again within a year, just to go over some of the names. It's fun to see, one great name after another. And luckily, it's not all reviews. He's talking about his work there, and you get a lot of good information about how a publishing company works and what problems they can run into and so on. And he cares about the covers. It's kind of sad when a cover doesn't go his way and he has to say, I think one he calls mediocre. There was one cover that when he was working at Borders after he worked at Dalkey Archive, he was not allowed to display the book. It reminds me of Wake Up, We're Almost There. It's not here. Do I have it there? Yes. Hold on, just a second. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, I don't think I finished that story. So I contacted Stephen Moore about Broussard, and he got me all the permission and helped with everything. And when we publish this one again, we have to add something to it, or we don't have to. But he suggests he'd like it if we did. He found something that I can't remember what it was, but maybe something by Broussard that we should put in here. And but anyway, this. I don't know if the first thing you look at here, first thing I look at either is this guy or Broussard, his canceled passport. But at Instagram, they look at the tits. Those are real tits because they're photographed. If they were drawn, no problem. But yeah, so I've run into that as well. But yeah, I should have said that earlier. I should have written a little thing about what I wanted to say. I shouldn't be such a lazy bastard, but I don't want to be a good reviewer. I don't want to be a reviewer. I don't want to be an editor. I mean, I'm not an editor. I'm technically an editor, but I don't do much editing. Stephen Moore is a great editor. Great eye. And he sees things. I'm living right now in a state of fear because I sent him the flamethrowers and the Seven Madmen flamethrowers, 2 titles in one novel by Roberto Arlt, one of the great books of the 20th century. Something Stephen Moore and I have in common now is that I haven't. I don't know the fate of all of our writers, but I know that I've been able to bring out a lot of really great writers just by having a press. But of the 20th century, 2 of the great novels, big great novels, I've been able to put out. But this one, Stephen Moore read this slop copy of the 2 put together that violates the ethos of Roberto Arlt, so that's all I'll say about it. This is the only legitimate copy. This is done with advice from Latin American writers and with love of Arlt, my love of Arlt. And I did everything I could to make it as Arlt wanted his own books, presumably because that's how he presented them. And the other one actually made up a new title, which is just criminal. And so we're going to leave that guy out of it. But Moore read The Seven Madmen, which was really well translated, by the way, by Naomi Lindstrom. And we have that translation here. And so does the other one. It's not Naomi Lindstrom's fault that the guy couldn't figure out what to do with the 2 together. Also that it was my idea. Also that he took my introductions to the flamethrowers, which is the second half of the book, and not translated until Larry Riley did it by 1917 or 18, had a finished one. He did a great job before that, and nobody knew. It just needed a little bit of basic English copy editing, I think. Great stuff. But there are too many mistakes, typos, and I'm not the best at finding those, except when I first read a book. But then after I read it, Moore, he can't help but see them. He knows the pain of writers. David. He tells a great story about David Markson in here. Sad story, but Markson seeing on the cover an extra, a misplaced dash, and just went berserk. And I do not judge people like that. I mean, when you write a book and you get it published, you're doing something that you're probably, if you're a great writer, you're not going to do more than 5 to 30 times in your life. And that's what you leave behind. And you're giving this to a publisher to present it to the public. And, so if there's a mistake on the cover, I don't know. For me, it doesn't bother me that much because there's going to be mistakes. There are going to be mistakes. He tells another great story about how O'Brien was just being a dick and picking on him, and and told him, I can't remember what the book was, but or a series of books, and Moore had, or maybe it was the review of contemporary fiction, but Moore had made like 3 mistakes. But then over 6,000 or 7,000 pages. Surely there were more than 3, But that Moore's a great editor. I am not. Anyway, and a really nice guy. But you get an idea of what things can be like behind the scenes at even the best press. It could have been raunchier. He had a lot more stories to tell. I believe that part of it is he didn't want, I'm guessing, I think he wanted to tell his story because people are interested. And he couldn't tell his story without, talking truthfully about this asshole he worked for.